So I've just completed a cruise on one of the world's most luxurious brand new cruise ships with a cruise line that you probably have never heard of, known as EXPLORA Journeys by MSC Cruises. And in this video, I'm going to give you a thorough, in-depth review of my entire experience from top to bottom. From the pricing, the food, the entertainment. I'll show you my room, which happened to be the largest, most expensive suite on board, basically outlining everything from the good, the bad, and of course, the ugly. By the way, before we really dive into this video in review, there are two things that I want to make all of you aware of. This cruise was sponsored by my amazing travel agent partners over at LUXRALLY, meaning EXPLORA Journeys is not paying me to say anything. All of the opinions that I express in this video are mine, as well as the other passengers that I spoke to while on board. Number two, the opinions that I express in this video come from my personal perspective and experience from my time on board. There may be some opinions you like or you don't like. However, you could obviously go on an EXPLORA Journeys cruise ship and have a completely different experience. Anyway, let's get to it, starting with an overview. So EXPLORA Journeys Cruises is an all-inclusive luxury line that showcases European excellence. The company was only founded in 2021, so it's relatively new, and they currently only have two ships operating within their fleet, that of which being the EXPLORA 1 and EXPLORA 2. However, between 2026 and 2028, they will be bringing in 4 additional cruise ships. In terms of the price for an EXPLORA Journeys cruise, it can range anywhere between $3,000 to $15,000 per person. It can also get much higher depending on factors like your itinerary, the time of year that you are sailing, and if you want more of a top tier suite on board. However, that may sound expensive, but if you look at your average Royal Caribbean cruise with, let's say, the world's largest cruise ship, Icon of the Seas, for a family or a couple between 2 and 4, it will typically cost you around $7,000. And once you have the add-ons put in, like your drink packages and your excursions, it's probably going to range within that area either way. So I would say personally, looking at it, it is definitely a good deal if a luxury cruise is something that you are into. For my cruise, I will be sailing on board the EXPLORA 2 cruise ship on a 10-day sailing to the Caribbean out of Miami, Florida. Now, the EXPLORA 2 just launched back in 2024. It has 14 decks, 4 pools, 6 restaurants, 12 bars, and holds just under 1,000 passengers at full capacity, giving you the ultimate luxury experience. For this cruise, I would also be staying in the largest suite on board, the owner's residence, at a whopping 3,014 square feet and a price tag of $137,000. However, we will get to that later on in the video. So on the first day of the cruise, or embarkation day, I do have to admit the experience went from mind-blowing and amazing to not so great pretty quickly right out of the gate. You see, the owner of LUXRALLY Travel, David, decided that since we're going on a luxury cruise, naturally we should go to the port in a luxurious fashion. So he took his two-tone Rolls-Royce Phantom over to the port. However, unfortunately, when we arrived, things got confusing very quickly. We were told that our 24-hour butler would be escorting us inside of the terminal through our check-in process and on board the ship. However, when we got there, nobody was there at all. We were told later on that the butler had been standing out there for a whopping 3 hours. You see, David had his driver and assistant, Peter, establish a line of communication with EXPLORA Journeys. By the way, you've met Peter a couple times. Really great guy. Peter had been in contact with EXPLORA Journeys to confirm any and all special requests, as well as our arrival time. However, and unfortunately, it would seem like the line of communication would fall short somewhere between EXPLORA Journeys and the staff that should have been waiting for us whenever we arrived. And by the way, side note here, I know all this sounds like extremely very first world problems, but you have to take everything into consideration. When you pay $137,000 for a 10-day cruise, naturally you would expect the best of the best. I think that goes without saying. Anyway, there was one small booth for all of the guests to check in at, which I found a little interesting because even a standard MSC line or a Royal Caribbean or NCL does have 2 separate lines for the regular guests, in this case the regular suite guests, and the guests that book the ultra luxury suites. Eventually, a staff member with the cruise line would come out and get us and escort us inside and grab our additional bags. They did so in a very unconventional way with a wheelchair. However, if it works, it works. We then had to go put our credit cards on file, and this is something that's a little nitpicky, but if you've seen any other cruise line, your Royal Caribbeans and NCLs of the world, you can typically add your credit card prior to going to the terminal. That way it expedites the boarding process for all of you. Nevertheless, after all of that was said and done, we did meet up with our butler, and we were then escorted onto the EXPLORA 2. And I gotta say, as soon as I got on board, I was shocked and awed because the ship was absolutely beautiful. The first thing we did once on board was check into our muster station, or should I say our butler did, and they gave us drinks, and we went straight to the suite after that. And when I saw the owner's residence suite, I gotta tell you, I have never seen anything like that on any cruise ship I've ever been on. And you guys know I have been on a lot of ships. Like I said, this room cost a whopping $137,000 for the next 10 days, 3,014 square feet. It came with a living room. It came with a dining room. It came with a master bedroom. It came with a side room at additional cost. It also came with other amazing amenities. Like, for example, before even arriving on Explorer 2, the cruise line would contact us and ask us if we had any specific needs that we might want, like the alcohol preference, which they would then stock up and continue to restock if it ever got low. If we wanted any snacks like marshmallows or any type of candy, they would also provide it for us. Do keep in mind that if there is a type of alcohol that you prefer, this is one of the few cruise lines that will also allow you to bring that alcohol on board, which I thought was pretty cool. But going around the rest of the suite, inside of the master bedroom and any other room, if you had other preferences like how you like your pillows, you want plush pillows, you want a softer bed or a firm bed, they can provide it for you. Inside the bathroom, it was large and in charge. You had a tub, you had a waterfall shower, you had a steam room, a very large walk-in closet, and then as you went outside, you had the entire back or aft of deck 8. There were lounge chairs all over the place, and of course the star of the show would be the whirlpool, which gave, I gotta admit, the most breathtaking views I have ever seen on any cruise ship in my entire life. Now, being completely transparent with all of you, naturally, the owner of LUXRALLY Travel, David, stayed in the master bedroom. I stayed in the Ocean Terrace suite next door, which you can book for an additional cost. Otherwise, it stays empty for the convenience and privacy of the guests that are staying in the owner's residence. However, the room was still very, very nice, had nice lounging areas and seating outside over on the balcony. The bed I could still have preferences for. Inside of the bathroom, like every other bathroom on the ship, you do have heated floors and a Dyson hairdryer. I'm not exactly sure what the deal is with that. From what I heard, that is a luxurious touch that a lot of people seem to appreciate. So pretty cool. A couple of other important things to note. We did have 24-hour butler service, 24-hour room service available to us. However, no matter which room or suite rather you stayed in on board, do keep in mind there are no inside cabins on board the $550 million Explorer 2. Everybody gets a balcony, and like I said earlier, since it's an all-inclusive line, your restaurants are free with the exception of one. Your Wi-Fi is included, your drinks are included. So again, overall, I would say no matter what suite you get on board, it is without a doubt a very nice deal. While exploring the ship, I want to say aside from really the hallways that you would typically see on any standard MSC cruise ship, the Explorer 2 was without a doubt out of this world. I went to the top deck and I was genuinely surprised to see how much seating there was for a cruise ship that holds less than 1,000 people. They had the cabanas that were there, which on any typical cruise ship, even potentially a premium line, you'd pay anywhere between $300 to $500 just for the day to even stay there. There were plenty of those available. The bars were very convenient to get around. There were tons of smoking areas for all the smokers out there, including a very nice cigar bar, which I did spend some time over there, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. There was also the lobby area that was similar to like what you would see on any cruise ship as like an atrium area, but it was decked out in luxury. They had a coffee bar, plenty of seating. I did go check out the spa, the thermal suite, which again is included in your booking for this cruise ship, was absolutely amazing. You could go there pretty much whenever you wanted, of course, within normal operating hours. And they had a theater. They had pretty much everything you'd see on board a standard cruise ship, only dazzled in luxury. Even the elevators were luxurious, spacious, and always smelled good and refreshing every time I stepped inside. There was a nice lounge in the front of the ship near the cigar bar that reminded me somewhat of a celebrity cruise ship, but definitely a step above. There were so many nooks and crannies on board, which I thought were really cool, from the pools to the lounges to the bar areas. From my understanding, when it came to the Explorer Journeys cruise line, the creators called it a passion project, highlighting and focusing on everything being spacious, more options, and of course a good design, which I thought they did very, very well. As far as the overall environment as well as the activities on board, I want to say there is some good and somewhat of a little bad sprinkled here and there, but there were about 500 people on board, so the ship was sailing at half capacity. However, during the sail away, there was some type of music and everybody was getting drinks up at the Sky Bar over on deck 14, and it was definitely a nice experience. But whenever we got around to the day-to-day activities, from what I've gathered and what I've gathered from other passengers on board, by the way, the age demographic, as you can imagine, is a little bit older than I am. I'm 32 years old. When you get to luxury, naturally, the demographics do bump up a little bit. Nevertheless, talking to passengers on board, and myself included, I would say that I wish there was a little more to do, especially during the evening hours. During the day, they did have your standard stuff. They had tea time over in the lounge every day, which is cool because a standard MSC cruise may do it once per cruise for the people that are staying in the luxurious yacht club on board. I do believe this is where there's going to be a little divide here and some headbutting on preferences when it comes to a luxury cruise, because I did talk to as many passengers as I possibly could on board, and the ideology and opinions were overwhelmingly the same, and I was surprised to see it. A lot of the passengers said there were some moments where they were honestly bored, because in terms of entertainment, the production shows they did have there, they had a Broadway singer, and it's typically what it was. They had pianists that were kind of scattered around the ship, which was a nice touch into luxury, but it kind of gave off a very stereotypical feel of luxury. Meanwhile, you have passengers on board that want to show their individuality and, yeah, get loose a little bit. Keep in mind, this ship is sailing out of Miami, Florida, and naturally when it comes to luxury, there are options. People are going to say, what's the difference between Explorer Journeys versus, let's say, like a Regent? If you're sailing out of Miami, one, there are plenty of people that are potentially my age and above that do have the disposable income as far as a younger demographic. They did have a DJ up at the Sky Bar. I believe it was like every other day. However, the DJ would leave at 7 p.m. Meanwhile, it seemed like damn near everybody on the ship was kind of over in this area, shaking a tail feather, having a good time, and when the music just abruptly stopped, it was a signal for a lot of people that they have to go get dinner or go do something else. There was a nightclub on board. I do have to give Explorer Journeys an A for effort because there was literally nobody there, really, except for me. I went there like the first or second night and realized that I was going to be dancing with Casper the Friendly Ghost, so I overall didn't go. But typically what you will see on most cruise ships is that there is somewhat of a guide as far as where people go. There doesn't need to be any announcements technically, right? But usually after a production show or something like that, people know that this is the bar to be at or this is the lounge to be at. Personally, and again, the opinions of other passengers as well, they felt like there was nowhere where they could be social should they be so inclined to do so. And many of the passengers were actually interested in meeting other people, regardless if the ship was at half capacity with 500 passengers on board or at full capacity with 1,000. Once again, this opinion can naturally be either a pro or con depending on your personal preference. There are people that want to go dive into luxury and be completely left alone, maybe, or with their significant other. There are people that want to be around like-minded individuals. I do believe that since the line is new, they're still kind of finding their lane. Maybe do something like put a musician or the pianist even in the cigar bar to kind of get people to gather over in that area so they could meet. If those people that have money are meeting with other people that have money, guess what? Those people might come back and continue to enjoy their experience with Explorer Journeys. But that's all I have to say about that category. Okay, now let's switch gears and go into the food, which for the first time ever in a review, I will say was my favorite thing about a cruise. You guys know I'm not a big foodie, but wow. I have never been blown away by food on board a cruise ship. Starting with the buffet area, the Emporium Marketplace, I did not know what to expect, but man, once again, blown away. Up at the Emporium Marketplace, the only thing I would say is probably similar to as far as the serving style would be similar to a Virgin Voyages where you don't personally grab the food yourself. There are people in there to assist with whatever it is that you'd like, but the food in there, from the caviar to the lobster tail to the oysters to the steak at the buffet, you can indulge and eat as much as you want. The entire area was absolutely beautiful as far as the seating arrangements. Unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately, I only ate there twice because I had to check out the other restaurants. I would say my favorite restaurant on board was without a doubt Sakura. This is the Japanese or Asian restaurant because the food there was to die for. I ate there twice as well. They had a French restaurant, which for me, French food is absolutely delicious, but it's something that I am pretty accustomed to because I've spent a lot of time over in France. Still, definitely top tier, bar none. They did have one restaurant that was an upcharge called Anthology. It was $140 per person, if I remember correctly, and then for an additional $60, you can get a type of wine tasting included in that. We did indulge in it while we were there, and the food was mwah, chef's kiss, definitely Michelin star rated. And something that I noticed about all of the restaurants on board, which is pretty cool, is that they have an open kitchen, meaning you can get a first-hand look at everything that is going on as the chefs prepare your food. I also checked out the steakhouse, Marble & Co., and I immediately could tell that this cruise line was unlike any other. They did not skimp out on the quality of meats that they used on board or any of the food products for that matter. They also didn't try to put 1,000 ingredients into one meal to try to make it seem good. The food there was absolutely delicious and legitimately good tasting, no matter, in my opinion, who tried it. Finally, the cherry on top of this food category was without a doubt the chef's table. I did have the honor of going to the chef's table twice. Once with the captain and all of the officers. We had some very good, interesting conversations. And then for the last day of the cruise, the head chef over there, Luca, prepared something absolutely amazing. And the one thing that I will highlight once again, when it comes to the quality of food, Explorer Journeys did not skimp out. And this is something I'm not taking lightly, because if you guys have seen my MSC reviews, I do say the typical standard food on a MSC cruise ship is not bad, but it's lacking a little bit of seasoning, except for the pizza. MSC has always done well there. But the quality of food on the Explorer 2 was out of this world. When I say Wagyu A5 meats, the top of the top quality was being used in preparing all of the food. And for the first time ever, I don't exactly have the most detailed palate. It's not something that I really look into. Again, I'm not a foodie, but man, melt in your mouth is an absolute understatement. Basically, the way David explained to me is that there are levels to this luxury game when it comes to quality meats. I am still kind of new to this. However, he explained that when it comes to Wagyu and these Wagyu A5s, for example, there are other cruise lines and restaurants, even on land, that will use a certain type of Wagyu, but typically it's kind of like a knockoff brand from Australia or another country. Whereas when you have the Wagyu A5, it is directly from Asia and Japan, and there is absolutely nothing like it. And he was very surprised to see that they had Wagyu A5 available to eat on board the Explorer 2, because there's no other cruise line, even some luxury lines for the most part, that do not offer this type of quality of meats. By the way, I do have one more point I want to make when it comes to the food category, or at least the special invites that I was able to attend while on board the Explorer 2. You might be assuming that because I'm an influencer or a YouTuber and creating content that I got the special invite. No, no, no. These invites go out to, of course, all of the passengers that are staying in the top tier suites. You have to either be in those categories or simply an interesting person on board. But primarily, the people that are paying for the higher tier suites get the higher tiered service and, of course, the invites to hang out and get dinner with people like the captain, the officers, and, of course, the head chef on board. From what I can see, it's these fine little details that make luxury luxury. The Dom Perignon that is inside of the top tier suites alone is a big statement, in my opinion, when it comes to luxury, because that's something that you don't see really anywhere else. Okay, let's go ahead and sail over to another category, because I found this very interesting. That is, of course, the itinerary. Because while I was on board the Explorer 2, I noticed that everything on board was of the most magnificent, the most pristine, the most immaculate quality. And I said, how are they making money, or how are they able to pull all of this off? There has to be somewhere in some category where they're going to, I want to say, cut costs to some degree. They're over in the Caribbean, and that's where I noticed it. I'm not saying this is for every itinerary, but I will say for my itinerary for these 10 days, it was overall pretty standard and basic. You got your Key West, you've got your Cozumel. We did stay overnight, which I thought was nice, and you guys know Cozumel is my favorite cruise port of all time, so I wasn't complaining about that. We went to Costa Maya and Progreso, Mexico. Once again, these are all pretty standard places that a cruise ship, even the mega cruise ships, would go over to. Oh yeah, I did miss a stop or an island or port of call. We were supposed to go to Cayman Brac. However, due to inclement weather, we did shift over to Grand Cayman. And I do want to make it very clear, these ports of calls and destinations are not necessarily a bad thing, but typically when you got luxury lines and smaller vessels, they're usually going to more exotic destinations. And I do know for a fact that, of course, Explorer Journeys does offer these itineraries, but again, I was genuinely surprised. I thought we were going to go someplace super crazy magical. I'm not complaining about it either, but I do see where if there was an opportunity to cut costs somewhere, it would be in that category because for the most part, people are going to be enjoying the luxury cruise ship more than they are the ports in this particular instance. Now, shifting over to the honorable mentions of the stuff that I thought was pretty cool. First of all, staying in the beautiful, luxurious owner's residence suite, we did have a butler that was dedicated to that specific room. And he would study the habits of the passengers, us that were staying in there, and figure out where we were most of the time. And literally, if he needed anything or he wanted to ask us if we needed anything, he would come find us, which I thought was pretty cool. You also had laundry rooms on board, which you don't even see on a lot of cruise ships these days. They were on deck 9 and 10, especially a luxury cruise, but it is supposed to offer the ultimate convenience because that's what luxury is. How much do you want to be inconvenienced will determine your luxury level. That's how I personally look at it. Just to keep it simple, if you don't want to wait in any lines, if you don't want to have to be denied a restaurant because it's sold out, if you want plush pillows, sometimes you get what you pay for. So if you start diving into a little bit of luxury, you no longer have those inconveniences. So if you pay a little more, then, well, you're going to, of course, reap the benefits as such. They did have name brand stores on board. You know, if you're going on a typical cruise ship, you're usually going to see that there is one major vendor that is in charge for most of the stores that are on board. We also had the head chef, Luca, as well as the officers come and talk with us and even have a couple cigars on a few occasions to make sure that all of our needs were met. Luca, the chef, would ask us every day what we wanted for the breakfast the following day. And I admit, David made some very interesting suggestions like a pizza burger and I got a waffle. Our butler would literally bring this food to us every morning without fail. It was a nice touch and something that honestly I've never experienced. It was just pretty cool. From the massages to the staff on board bringing out and setting up a personal TV for myself and the passengers that I was sailing with so that we could smoke cigars under the stars and watch the Super Bowl. They made sure, Explorer Journeys, to cover every single element to ensure that myself and the passengers on board had the best time possible. This was without a doubt the best cruise that I have ever taken on a technical level. I do still say that my favorite cruise was Antarctica, and that was an expedition luxury cruise where I had a great time, but this was definitely a step above. It was next level and things went off without a hitch. Absolutely perfect and amazing experience that I would recommend to literally anyone. At the end of the cruise, there was the secondary pain point. I would say this is probably the only con that I noticed with Explorer Journeys that I think everyone overwhelmingly would agree is not so great. The embarkation and the disembarkation process, the process of getting off of the ship. While there wasn't technically a big line to disembark the ship, once we got inside the terminal, things seemed to be very disorganized. There were long lines. We got off in the afternoon. To me was not such a good look for the overall experience because it does matter how things go as far as its smoothability from start to finish. That was weird to say smoothability, but you get what I'm saying. Things should be smooth throughout the whole process if you were talking in terms of luxury. Anyway, this is going to conclude my review. By the way, if you do want to check out the owner's residence as far as a full tour, I will leave a link for it in the description box below, as well as for the other suites. And of course, if you want to book a cruise with Explorer Journeys and get up to $300 of onboard credit, you can check out LUXRALLY, our travel agent sponsor, in the link in the description box below, as well as pinned in the comments. Or if you want to book any other vacation for that matter, our amazing, professional, well-trained travel agents can assure you have the best vacation possible for the best possible price. I appreciate all of you guys for watching. I love all of you, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.